Welcome to Metal on Demand. Today I'm interviewing Laura Pearman, who is a branding photographer and is in the middle of an interesting pivot thanks to COVID. And she's also the founder of Selfie School for camera shy business owners who need to get their face on social media more often. So welcome to the show, Laura. It's really lovely to have you on, and I'm really excited to find out a bit more about what's going on with you right now.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all. And can I just say, there are not enough podcasts like this. So I love it whenever I'm asked to come on a podcast by a friend, like a business colleague like you. But when they're doing a podcast that's in a very particular vein, I think what you're on here is genius. And I'm so excited to see where this show goes for you.
It's like an experiment for me. So I feel like I've been up and down so many times, and everybody talks about that is what it's like. But I'm interested to find out if everybody else's up and downs have been quite as dramatic as mine have. So it's interesting. It's a kind of therapy for me as well.
Yeah. But this is the kind of show that I personally love subscribing to. So when there's a really straightforward format, like Off Menu, I'm really into Off Menu, the podcast right now. And the format sounds really boring. Like, we have a guest on, we talk about their favourite meal. Like, that's a yawn fest. But the beauty of it is you get to learn so much about their guests, but within this very safe, familiar format. And I think that's like the same sort of vein that you're in with this. And I know I'm going to be really intrigued to watch it, because hopefully I'll know who the guests are. Maybe I'll know them personally. But I'll be like, yeah, what has your roller coaster been like? And what is your metal in whatever it is that you do? I think it's a really interesting topic, but a really cool format as well.
Thank you. And so that brings us on to what your testing time of this year. So you love to travel and you're a photographer. So this year's not really been the greatest for you. And I was just interested to hear, like, how have you managed over the last few months, and what does that look like for your business?
So I had the coolest tour. Like, I've always had these dreams, Laura, of being like a burlesque artist come rock star, right? And that was my dream life. Like, I wanted to just be like on tour, doing my talent on tour. Like, that was the goal. I've done travel and we're going to talk about that, but I'm addicted to it. I love the wanderlust. So I thought, right, if I can just do that as a photographer, happy days, I've hit the jackpot. So for years, I've been saying to my team, like, look, I just want to go on tour. And I had finally pulled it together. I've still got the spreadsheets. I was going to go on tour right around the southwest of the UK, doing shoots back to back for all of the people I know in those counties, and then spend a bit of time, maybe like Cornwall, Devon way, and then come back home. And that was all supposed to happen in May. And just as COVID was really kicking off, like, I was planning this to the ends of like exact petrol money and mileage and which car was I going to hire, everything. And then it was like, yeah, that's not happening. Poof, up in smoke. That was my whole summer fund. I had about 15 grand on the table, ready to go. People were ready to book. So yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, I absolutely cried my eyes out for like a good 2 days.
Next question is like, how quick is the bounce back from that? Because you obviously have bounced back from that initial disappointment, but what did it look like before the bounce happened?
It wasn't pretty. So the way that I've tried to describe this when I've spoken to like the normal people that we know who have the 9-to-5 job, and yes, everyone's been through upheaval, but people who have this full-time employment where no matter what, on the 23rd you get paid, I've tried to explain to them, they're like, yeah, it must be hard. And you're like, no, you don't really understand. Like, have you ever been into a casino and put 15 grand on red and just lost it? And they're like, well, no, I would never do something so risky. You're like, that's what happened to me, but in business terms. So I absolutely cried my eyes out. I was a real cow to be around. And then I thought, right, well, I've cried now, so let's just crack on and do something. And I'm doing this exciting pivot, but the way that I started bouncing back from it was, I remember going to an Atomic meeting. I think that you were there, and it was like the Friday after we had just found out that we were definitely going into lockdown in the UK. And Andrew and Pete had organised this Atomic boardroom meeting, and it was basically like, yeah, just come and have a chat, and if you need to cry, like we'll try and figure out what to do. And in that meeting, I got into a conversation with George Demanis, who's a photographer, but he's based in New York, and we serve some of the same sort of people. You could argue that we're in direct competition, but I never really see it that way. George has a very different style to me. He's a really funny guy. So we got into a bit of a private chat while this meeting was happening. And George and I had these big plans of shooting together. So he was going to come over to the UK for Atomicon, a conference happening in April. And I was hoping to be out in America at least 2 times this year. And we were going to meet up, and he was going to like show me his area. We'd go on a little bit of a photo date together, and then the same over here. And we were chatting. He was like, yeah, I'm so bummed that we're not doing that. And he was like, and I said, let's just do something now. I thought the best way to start bouncing back is to just create. So that's what I did. I threw my whole heart and soul into doing this interesting episode on Moi TV, which is my YouTube channel. And I've got 4 photographers from all over the world to collaborate. And we just shot like what was going on right now for us. So we came up with these silly themes. I gave all of the photographers the same theme, just like when you're studying photography in college. We all went off and shot it, and then I spent ages pulling it together. So I just threw myself back into work that way. Then on that same call, I put myself forward and I said, look, like, I don't know what to do. I've had a business for 8 years now, like 9 years nearly. It's just gone up in smoke. What the hell am I supposed to do? And everyone had kind of said, look, Laura, you've got other skills. So one of the big takeaways from when I used to do photo shoots was people would say to me in the feedback form, the little satisfaction survey that I'd send them, they'd always say something along the lines of, it's more than a photo shoot that you did. So I thought, well, maybe there's something in that. Maybe there's a book in that. Like, what do people actually mean? So whilst I was putting this episode together, documenting COVID, I basically set up about 35 phone calls, and I just got on the phone to people who I had worked with before, serving the same clients, people who I'd shot with. And if we had shot together and they'd given me that feedback, I just said, look, you know, I can do lots of other things, but my life before being a photographer, I worked in public relations and marketing. I was like, is that the kind of thing you were talking about when you gave me this feedback? And so like 35 different people gave me their honest feedback. And actually in some of them phone calls, they said, Laura, we're happy to hire you to do anything within that vein because we know you, we like you, we trust you. We're going to be working together anyway in photography. So by the time I'd reached those 35 phone calls, I had already got work in, and I wasn't like freaking out about paying my bills. So since then, you know, we're like, 6 or 7 months since that time, I've got to the point now where I've got a small collection of retainer clients, and I'm describing it as brand management. So for some clients, you know, creatively directing their content and running their Instagram, that kind of thing, or helping them come up with much cleverer, creative ways of coming across with the way that they want their brand to be known. And now we're getting to the point where some of those clients want me to kind of represent them. So I'm being like an agent, I suppose, and I'm getting them booked on the right shows, or I'm starting to talk with brands to get some sort of influencer income happening. Or we're looking at just carving out. So I've got this whole theory now, the way that the influencer market has becoming a commodity. Like 10 years ago, it wasn't even a thing. But we've got to that point where it's gone past the celebrity, then it's gone into the reality star, and they've cocked it up in several different ways. And I feel like now, because we've got this entrepreneur trend that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, I feel like that's the next commodity. So I feel like I'm quite early on jumping on it, but I think it fits really nicely. And I feel like it can go back into the photography when it's safe to do that.
And you would be like on the team of the entrepreneur to help them navigate this like new and unexpected role of being an influencer, so that they don't massively cock it up like other people have done, or say yes to brands that are not a good fit with their brand. Wow, that sounds amazing. Because I know that these are scams. Like when someone sends me a message saying we want you to model our swimsuit, I think I'm not certain that you do.
Yeah, that feels like a scam. Yeah, you don't want to see my ass. Yeah.
We really want to tap into your audience. We're like, what, my audience of about 700 people? I think probably not. So, but those invites are there all the time. And I was saying, like, it's so easy to get sucked into that. And when it does get to the stage where I've got those opportunities, I'd have absolutely no idea how to navigate that or what I'm supposed to be doing. So that sounds like a market that's wide open for you.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is it feels very much like the Wild West. Like, I remember back in 2016, I wanted to build my own influence, and I wanted to get local recognition as this photographer who knew about marketing. So I started clubbing together with a lot of regional bloggers at the time, and they were just ransacking the Northeast. I'm not going to say who they are, obviously. Like, I don't want people coming and hammering my door down. But they were basically hitting up big brands. I'm talking about like department store brands. It was mainly female, this group. And they were just going around town getting free dinners, free swag, free this, free that. And the brands had no wherewithal and no measurement or any quality whatsoever. They were like, yeah, they're influencers. This seems quite sexy and hot right now. And I'm the regional rep of the Northeast division of big brand name here. Yeah, just come in and here's some free stuff and have a free meal. And these bloggers weren't even going away and creating blogs, all of them. And I was really perplexed that there was no quality whatsoever in this. And after a while, I decided to distance myself from it because I didn't want to be associated with it. So it's been really interesting, 4 years on, the metrics and the capability that the small business owner has just by knowing their way around like the insights of their social media platform or their Google Analytics. You can actually be really proactive compared to the part-time side hustling content creator, and you can be really niche about the people that you serve, and brands will absolutely love that. So my feeling with this is there's a big element of ethical quality about it. So yes, I'm happy to represent this demographic, but when I represent this demographic for your brand, I will be proactive as a business owner, and I will be able to give you exact metrics on how my influence has helped your brand. And this is the thing that there's a lot of influencer agencies out there, and they're not even measuring this. So fine well, the brand's probably not able to measure much of it. The influencers aren't really measuring much of it. So it's no wonder that there has been cock up after cock up when dealing with people who have over 1 million followers.
I just take you back to how you came up with this idea. What I really love is it was a reminder of when I first got started and I have to make some money somehow. I sat down and looked at the freelancer sites like People Per Hour and looked at what people were selling. And I wrote this massive list of, this is what I can do. Because I'd had to leave my job for various personal circumstances. So I wasn't able to go back to work and I needed to make money. And I was like, what can I do right now? I have to park what I've done before, but based on that experience, what options are open to me? And that sounds like exactly the same thing that you did after you finished crying.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Go back and just take stock of, okay, well, that's not an option right now.
What can I do? Yeah.
Was that the first time you've ever had to do that since becoming self-employed?
I've done that at different phases throughout my life. I can even think back to remember you guys when you did your A-levels? I think we're the similar sort of age. So it was still A-levels. And I remember I completely ballsed a lot of my A-levels up. And there was no way I was getting accepted to the universities I had applied for and being given conditional offers for. And even then, I can remember sitting on the phone and thinking, right, come on, Laura, you can make this work. And I talked my way in. I don't know how I did it. I talked my way in on this degree that I didn't have the points for. They accepted me, and I blagged my way in. It's one of these things. I am a very emotional person, and I'm quite open about the fact that I handle anxiety and depression in my adult life. That's been something that's with me. But when the chips are really down, sure, I'll cry and maybe, hide under a duvet for a little bit. But that usually doesn't go beyond the 2-day mark. When the chips are really down and the stakes are high, I'm like, right, okay, what can we do? Let's just turn something out here. Let's make something work. And thankfully, I had the contacts that I did. I think if there was anybody in a situation like this and they were just getting started in their business, the first advice I give to anybody is just get on the phone to everyone you know, even if it's family and friends, and just start building a network, because it is all about people knowing you and trusting you at the end of the day.
That's quite a leap though. If you experience, maybe you don't experience anxiety in the same way as I do, but to get on the phone, if I'm feeling low or I'm struggling, that's the opposite of what I want to do. I just want to be under the table, blanket over me, nobody knows I'm there. So that's takes an extra level of courage to do it when you already have that kind of background level of anxiety anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm just a medical freak, but there is a certain thing about me. I'm a Gemini. My birthday date splits exactly in half. I'm very creatively obsessed with opposites. And I have a thing in my mental health where I can go into like Showtime Laura. So inside I'm dying and, all I want to do is cry, but I am really, really skilled at putting on a brave face and smiling through it. And, as soon as that phone call is over, I might hang the phone up and lie on the floor and cry, but I'm able to do Showtime Laura. It's this weird skill that I've got.
How do you make sure that you're doing that the right amount and it's not going to finish you off because you've done it too much?
So I've been in hospital with nervous exhaustion. I've developed 2 long-term medical conditions. One's called IIH, idiopathic intracranial hypertension, and the other one was sudden onset asthma. They're long-time illnesses that I'm now going to have for the rest of my life, but they are both caused as a result of doing just what you said there, burning yourself out to the wire. So when I first set up my business, I had a studio model business and I was a portraiture photographer in the very traditional sense. So you can imagine babies, weddings, pets, all that jazz. And even though I had worked in portraiture studios before, I put myself right out on a limb. I got into so much debt. Numbers I don't even want to say because they were big. And I thought, right, I have to make this work now. Let's just go into Showtime Laura because that's my comfort zone. And I did that for a good year and a half. Got pretty ill in that time, losing your voice for 2 weeks, getting a lot of flu, that kind of thing. And then it got to the point where it got so bad that I ended up in hospital. So that's something that I'm always trying to manage myself, making time to take time out. I have a lot of little daily rituals as well. So things like I take my supplements, I have to have a smoothie every morning, try and monitor how much sleep I'm getting through my Fitbit. And when things aren't quite going right, that's the early warning sign that the burnout is around the corner. So let's do something now before it's too late.
What's the first things you notice? Is it that you stop sleeping or you dropping those morning routines that would normally be important to you?
Yeah. So the little silly rituals might stop, or the sleep goes I'm oh yeah, it's 4 a.m. and I'm still working. What's happening here? This isn't really that urgent. Nothing is. Or I might start cancelling appointments last minute. I hate it when people do that to me, but I start getting a little bit flaky, and that's flaky with myself. And then that starts to have a little bit of a knock-on effect. Wait, yeah, check yourself.
So you've become really aware of what that slide looks like so you can adjust accordingly and not go back there again.
Yeah, hopefully. Touch wood. It's never going to happen. But yeah, I have a lot of little checks in place. And if any of those checks start going awry, it's time to kind of check in and figure out something bigger going on here.
Yeah. It sounds like you've had to, you've changed direction with your business a few times since you first went self-employed. Yeah. One of the questions that I wanted to ask everyone who I interview is, when you first started out, did you have an idea in your head of what the success would look like? When was it going to be that you go, oh, I've made it, it was totally worth it, I'm there now? Did you have something in mind right from the beginning, and did you get there?
Okay, so even when I was a child, I knew I was going to be in charge in one form or another. So sometimes that might have been me wanting to be the Prime Minister. Sometimes that might have been me wanting to be a manager. I think I wrote that in a school report when I was 7, and the teacher was like, of what? I was like, just things, people, in charge. So I've always had a sense of being able to take responsibility and make stuff happen. And then I remember the first time I went traveling, I did a cooking course in Thailand randomly and loved it and thought, right, it's okay. I've got my degree. I've got a bit of experience. I'll just set up a market stall and I'll make Thai fish cakes. I'll just do that. I always had an entrepreneurial sense. But the idea of success is something that I've always struggled with. I really embrace the hustle and being in it in the moment. And I'm yeah, success will come. But over the last few years, I've realized that if you have a much clearer vision of what you want your success to be, guess what? It's easier to get there, and it's actually achievable or possible. I've always had this thing holding me back. Like, well, just do some work now, just work really hard now, and the good things will come. But if you had asked me, Laura, what are those good things? I'd be like, well, good stuff. Like, I wouldn't have an answer. So now I have a very clear vision of what my success is, and it's very different to what I've had in the past. So my idea of success now is 4 holidays a year, a secure pension plan, property investment. I want to have a farmhouse that's converted on the Tyne Valley with a little bit of land so I can have a garden. And I want to have a team around me so that I can pick and choose how much work I want to do. And I've even got to the point where I've written it out. It's like a 500-word essay, and I'm describing everything that's around me as if it's in the present tense.
Yeah. And does it matter how you get those things? Like what work you have to do to be there, or what the business looks like, or what your, day in, day out work looks like? Is that part of that picture as well?
No, not really. So before COVID, I would have said, I really struggle to justify compromising my artist as a photographer. I would have come out with one of those smarmy lines. But if anything, this year has taught me that I am able to do a lot of other things besides photography. I'm able to turn my hand and my creativity to a lot of different things. And actually, no, if I get to these things that are like monetarily, described and very clear goals that I can achieve. Of course, I don't want to be like, a hitman or stripping. There are certain lines.
You wanted to be a burlesque dancer on tour. We could just go full circle and do that.
I wanted to be like a burlesque, like an artist, like a showgirl on tour. That would be like, the stars would be strategically placed. But yeah, I think this year especially, that's a lesson that I've learned. It doesn't have to be in the exact way that you decided it was going to be when you were 26. Like, things change, move with the times.
Okay. And if we take you back, how old were you when you said you wanted to set up that food store?
Oh, I was about 23 then. That was just after I'd done my backpacking.
If we go back to hair, and you don't have a food stall now, you have something completely different. Even though you've changed, you didn't have a vision of what success would look like, you didn't set particular goals. If she was to look at what you're doing now, would she consider that to be a success?
Oh yeah, she'd be thrilled to bits, because she wouldn't be working a couple of jobs. She certainly wouldn't be reporting to anyone. She wouldn't be having to show up at work at 9 a.m. and leave at 5 p.m. Like, what the hell's that about? Or sitting under fluorescent lights, or doing stupid acronyms every 5 seconds on the phone to other business people in a cubicle, and sitting next to these morose people who you wouldn't ever want to be near, but now you're next to them for 8 hours a day. Yeah, she'd be thrilled.
And what has it taken to get from there to here? What have you had to give up?
Oh my God, so much. I've lost a lot of friends. A lot of my friends from uni on my business degree, they all played it safe. So they went out and they got the safe jobs. And I decided to go off and, travel around the world and avoid responsibility for a while. So there was already quite a big split between us. We'd been so the same. We'd lived together for 3 years. We were exactly in sync, going for the same goals. And then I came back, this weird sort of hippie backpacker, and they were all getting mortgages, getting engaged and buying Dysons. And there was already quite a split. So then when I decided to go back into studying again, and that by that point they were talking about, doing the wedding or the honeymoon or having the babies, it was like, yeah, we haven't really got a lot to talk about. There was no big argument. It just kind of fade away. Yeah. And then the same thing happened to me again. So then I went back at 25 and did my photography degree. And I was like the weird, cool big sister. I like to think I was, with all these 18-year-olds, like teaching them all the wrong ways and hanging out with them. So I kind of regressed quite a lot in that degree, but I loved it. But then I got serious. I was like, right, I'm 25. I've got to get my shit together. Let's make this business work. Whereas they were kind of going through that initial graduate phase of, I've got a job and I get paid every month. So I was very serious and working really hard. So again, that distance happened again. So I should have these pockets of cool friends from different phases in my life. But because my business has always been at the forefront of that, those have gone. A lot of my family don't understand like how I make money. Still, 9 years in, they're like, every Christmas I get questions like, so when are you choosing to go back in January? Like, they're really bitter because they have to go back on the 3rd because the rest of the country's going back. And they're really like, there's a sense of bitterness about that. Oh, well, yeah, you choose when you go to work. And I was like, well, no, not really. Last night I pulled out this, I did that. It just don't get it. And then the other side of it is my relationship. So me and the Viking, we're still together now. We're very happy. But we got together before I did my photography degree. And just when I left my photography job to set up my business, we actually got engaged. We still haven't got married. There's no babies. Like, we're still kind of like, yeah, when the business takes off. Yeah, when the business takes off. So that, I wouldn't say that that's a sacrifice, because that's been a very conscious choice on both our parts as things have been going. But it is definitely a considered decision that I think a lot of people wouldn't be prepared to even entertain.
And also, it's just so much more than, I feel like there's this perception that all you have to do is work hard and give up a few Netflix box sets and grind, and then you'll be able to have what you want. And you think, like, I have given up so much more than television. So it's interesting to hear. And also, like, our stories are so different. In like 25, you're going back to university. I just had my second child when I was 25. And so I was like the very serious one, but also totally separate from my friends who were like, no way are we having kids for another 10 years. But we've still had the similar experience of losing the friendships over the fact that our lives have gone in very different ways. My family don't understand. I mean, they love me and they're very supportive, but genuinely my mum asked me how people gave me money over the internet. Like, how did they give it to you though? It's like, I can't explain this, so I don't even try. So they have absolutely no idea what I do.
Oh, I love it. That's a whole show, isn't it, in of itself? Like, when you're an entrepreneur, what your family thinks you do to make a living. It's a whole job. Like, someone could be a relationship consultant. Imagine how well they'd be doing now in the lead up to Christmas, like prepping you if these are the ways that you answer the questions at Christmas. This is how you explain what you do in a language that other people are going to be able to understand. There's another without
pivot.
Losing your temper. Yeah, for sure. But it's all the financial things as well, Laura. Like, the pensions, getting paid when you're ill, like that. None of that happens when you're self-employed at all. And it takes quite a lot of confidence, I think, to trust in yourself. I feel like that whole thing we were talking about, burning yourself out, even though in the moment you feel like you've got no other choice, over time, you either make the decision like, I'm really sick now, I've got this health issue, I could quite easily like leech off the government on some sort of incapacity situation, or I could get a 9-to-5 job and be the kind of employee who takes a sickie twice a month. I've played that game before in part-time jobs, and it works for a really long time because HR departments are created in the way that they have to give you 6 or 7 warnings before you're sacked. But when you're self-employed, none of that flies.
Why did you leave that? Like, what was missing from that situation where you could have the stability of a regular income? You could, and like, I know you're saying you throw a sickie, but really what you mean is I needed a break, which is a valid reason to not be in work. And so you had that consistent income, you got paid when you were sick, you got holiday, you could explain what you did to your family. You maybe could have got married if you wanted to. What was missing from that made you have to do this such an enormous leap into being self-employed? I'm sorry, don't regret the decision.
Well, I have a major problem with authority. I really do. Like, I've had a lot of jobs. If I wrote down every job I'd had since I was 13, when I got my first job, I convinced my mum to get an Avon round in her name, and I did the Avon round. So I've been an entrepreneur since then. That was my first proper job. But I hate authority. I hate idiot people telling me what to do when it's quite blatantly obvious that the way I want to do it is better and more efficient. And I've had that my whole life. I think, I don't know what I was in a past life, but I have a real hard time reporting to people. It's different when you're reporting into clients because you genuinely care. And, the people I work with, I really want them to do well. So I'm obviously really open to taking feedback. And if there's an issue, let's solve the problem. But it's a very different scenario when you're at work. And then the other factor, your co-workers. How many idiot people have you been around at work? Everyone can reel off, oh yeah, I worked with this geezer once, he was into this. I don't want to be around those people. So why should I choose to be around those people when I could choose to be around people who are like me and are pretty cool. And then when I'm not with them, I'm with my family.
So the payoff, the money and the stability of the income is just not worth it for like the giving up of control, really, of what your day-to-day life looks like.
Yeah. And I don't think I would be able, I've worked in the corporate jobs, and, the amount of energy it takes to bite your tongue and put up with the bureaucracy is just too depressing. I don't think I could hit like the self-destruct button and I would have just got fired over and over.
And I don't know like how we did it like day in, day out. So when I did the all-day training for Atomic, so it was like a full day, that was a full day's work. So it was like 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I turned the computer off at the end of that and I was like a husk of a human. I was just, yes. Nobody speak to me. I cannot move. Just lie me down on the sofa in front of the telly for 2 hours. And I was exhausted. And I thought, wow, people just get up and do this again the next day. And the next day, like this is one day and they will do it for 5 days. And that's their normal working week. I'm a bit like ashamed at how weak I've become, that I'm so out of that routine of doing a full day over and over again.
Well, it's not just the full day, is it? Think about this. It's the commute. Remember commutes?
Yeah.
Where you're on like crowded escalators with people coughing and spluttering, like pre-COVID, but still it was minging, or on public transport, or sitting in a car in a queue of traffic with everyone else who hates the world. Like that's miserable. That's like 2 hours of your day doing that.
Yeah. And when you're doing it day in day, it just doesn't register, but you take a break from it. Like both of the times when I had maternity leave and then I'd have to go back to work in London. And I was so excited to go back as well. I was like, now I'm home with my kids all the time. Then I was like, just someone take the baby. I want to get back to work. And I was like, first day back, I was like, yeah, I'm going to London and I'm going to get to be myself again. And then I just was standing there, got off the tube, come up the top of the escalators at Liverpool Street and everyone's walking really fast. And I just wanted to cry. I was like, I hate this. I've been looking forward to this for so long. Yeah. Why am I doing it? It's awful.
I go through like a 48-hour cycle every time I go to London. This is the only city that it happens to me. But I go to London, I arrive in London, I'm like, yeah, this is where it's at, cosmopolitan. Like, look, there's this cool noodle option that you don't get in the Northeast. And then after the 48 hours have passed, I'm like, yeah, just get me the hell out of here. This is a cesspit. I can't bear it. He's a knob. Don't like her. He just pushed me in the face as he walked past. I want to go home.
I think I probably know the answer to this question anyway, but as I made you list off all of the things, the many great things that you've had to sacrifice to be able to run your business, has it been worth it?
Oh, 110%, yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And
even though it's been hard and, it's tested my health, it's tested my relationships, I would not have it any other way.
I mean, this year must have been like the point, if you were going to break at any point and go, I'm done, I'm going to go and get a job. I mean, there aren't any jobs for you to get, I suppose. That does help.
We did have that conversation. Like we had a conversation. I was like, well, I suppose I could get in, but what am I going to do? And the Viking was like, well, you could be an Amazon delivery driver. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll just keep running the business. It's fine.
What's he like support wise? I'll share first to make this more comfortable. My husband loves me very much and he tries really hard. But if I'm freaking out about something, so if I was having a bad day and saying, this is too hard, I don't want to do it, what's the point? I've worked so hard and this month didn't bring in whatever I wanted. So whatever the problem is, he would just immediately join me in that terror and go, you're quite right. You should definitely just jack it all in. It's a nightmare. It's making you miserable. Like, there's no balance. Wherever I am, if I'm happy, he's there too. If there's no balance at all. So if I'm feeling despair, he's just despairing right there with me. So he's the last person. Yeah, so he's the last person I should talk to. I was wondering, is yours a bit more stable than that?
We are very opposite. So it's classic opposites attract, Paula Abdul all the way. I'm very, I love a bit of risk. I think that's clear after the chat we've had today. And the Viking is very risk adverse. Like, he'll go to Las Vegas and look around, but there'll be no money leaving the pocket. He'll just watch other people. Whereas I'm like, yeah, come on, let's just get a credit card, throw it on. We're very, very different in that way. So me doing the business has been a big bone of contention over the years. And thankfully, we've kind of evolved. So we've got to the point where I used to call it the pimp conversation. So if things were down, he'd be like, yeah, so how much money have you made this month? It's like, you really don't, yeah, but you don't understand because I'm talking to this person, I've done this. Yeah, but how much money have you made? So we made the agreement that that was a pimp-based conversation and it probably wasn't healthy to continue doing it. So he knows not to say that now, but that we have in the rest of our relationship, in the 13 years we've been together, we, you know, that whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. If you go to a man with a problem, he thinks the reason you're sharing that problem is because he's supposed to solve it. And actually, as a woman, you want to just talk about a problem. You talk about a problem, let's cry together about our problems, and then we feel better again. So we've had to teach each other. And we get to the point now where if I'll come downstairs after a day of work and I start a rant, I am quite well trained at saying, right, this is one of those conversations where I just need you to listen to me and then ask me if you can give me a hug when I'm finished. Or sometimes he'll just stand there nodding and you can say he's a little bit confused, and then he like goes to the fridge and he's like, wine? Like, yeah,
that's the
so
right
the wine's
answer.
being poured, but it's really hard for him to do it, and it's really hard for me to do it. I don't know if like 8 years time we'll be really good at it and it'll be a new habit. It is still quite hard to do.
I don't have that like level of self-awareness. I'm in awe, so I would the same pattern. I'll come down and go like, wow, this thing.
You're not going to believe what's happened
this
today.
Has just gone wrong, and but I can't get there fast enough to say to him, okay, this is what I need you to do. Like, just shut up, listen, pour the wine, and then go, oh, but it'll all be worth it in the end. Or like, haven't you come so far? I just don't have the self-awareness to tell him what I need before I get started. And then by the time I've got started, I'm like, I've dragged myself down so far that you're not going to be able to get me back up again.
So he just needs to, you know, I can have a chat with him. We can just get him, like, say, you know, you need to be in one of these situations. Whenever Laura comes down to tell you good news or bad news, you don't ask her how it's going to get worse. You just say, is this a wine-based conversation or do you want me to hug you now? Those are the two questions you ask. You'll be like, either.
It works, but like with the good news, it's the same. So I can say like, yay, someone's invited me to do this. And it's like, is that good?
Is that good?
Like, I don't.
I was at an event. It was like a casual get together here in Newcastle. I was photographing for this lady, and she brought her partner along. I don't think they're married, and it was exactly like that. So we were all having dinner. We weren't excluding him, but obviously the things that we were talking about are really niche, quite technical things. And there were so many times where he was just like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. Is this cool? Is this cool? He's like, you're basically talking in another language. And we were all getting really excited about, like, I don't know, the latest update on Facebook or something.
That's how we feel like 90% of conversations that we go to with friends and family is that we're completely excluded from because it doesn't apply to us. So it's all right for him. Yeah, I think like just a bit of balance there. That seems fair enough. This has been so much fun, but I can't make it last forever.
Time flies.
Probably
doesn't
should.
it?
I'd just go to the fridge and get some wine and continue talking about my husband while he's busy upstairs working and looking after the kids. So you told us a little bit about what's next for you after your COVID-inspired pivot. So just tell me a bit about what's coming up in the immediate future for you.
Okay, so right now I'm in a wonderful, it's a champagne problem where I am overcommitted and we've got too much work in and not enough time to do it. So right now I'm in a period where I'm kind of procuring some specific help to make sure that my retainer part of my business is able to take on more clients, or if not, just be really self-sufficient and profitable. In my spare time, like I have any of that, I'm devising an online program. So I want to do an online program that's based around really cool entrepreneurs who actually have influence, realizing that they can monetize that influence. So I'm in the process of kind of figuring out what does that look like, what kind of curriculum's involved, who do I want to sell it to, how much it's going to cost. And my big goal with that is to have it out in Q2 of next year, but that could change depending on the cost of different things. That
sounds amazing. And if before that you can show me how to be a cool entrepreneur with any degree of influence so that I'd be eligible to enroll for the program, that would be awesome.
Well, the thing is, you have influence. So I'm dealing with a couple of mentors from a really great regional organization called RTC North. I think there are different types of divisions of this same organization in different regions. But the two chaps who are mentoring me are both men in like like their 50s, and they've had a really long career. So when you talk to them about social media and they're like, yeah, what are you even on about? But when I spoke to them about their network, it's like, yeah, I know people all over the world. You know, if I rang this guy up, he would lend me money without any question. That is influence. That is still influence. It's just influence prior to the social media boom. And you can still monetize that influence. It might just look a little bit different. So I've actually gone through an interesting period of explaining it to these guys. And as soon as they got it, they're like, yeah, there's so many people we know in the region, in the Northeast region, who would actually benefit from this. So I think, like I said before, I think this is the next wave of this. And it's going to be the coming together of the online influencer thing, as everybody knows it, with actual personable, professional influence. That's been around for hundreds of years.
You need to invent a new name for it, and then you can brand, like trademark the name of what this combination of types of influence is. I'm not even going to attempt it. I love playing with words. I'm not going to humiliate myself right now by trying to come up with something.
Well, have a glass of wine, and if any ideas come across, shout out and we can jam on it.
That's when the best ideas come out. So be sitting in the evening, like we've had dinner, had a glass of wine, but 10 o'clock in the evening, I'll suddenly grab my phone and go, I've just got to text someone this because I thought of it.
Yeah, that's the same for me. Or sometimes if I've had a shower or a bath, I come up with like after a workout, I come up with great ideas. And then the other source of great ideas is weird dreams that I have, usually after watching very strange, weird films or documentaries. And somehow I'll have a dream and I'm like, oh, that gives me the idea of this for that person.
Do you have to write it down as soon as you wake up, or can you just hold it in your head until...
I can usually hold it because there's a really bizarre association, like purple jelly and roller skates, and I'm like, yeah, that dream. And then once I start talking about it, I remember.
I'm like, it's gone. So if I think of something, I have to get it straight away, otherwise it's gone. And then some days later I might think, I'm pretty certain I had an idea about this, but unless I can then collect back all the things that inspired it in the first place. So I guess if it was a film, if I thought about the film, then it would take me back to the thing because I linked into the inspiration. But usually it's just so fleeting that it's gone. And
how do you collate that though? I've heard of an app called Brain Toss. I went through a phase of using that, and it's like a Alan Partridge sort of situation where you just turn the app on and say, yeah, Lane, I've had this amazing idea about this, and it just like stores it somewhere. Or do you traditionally write it down?
This is making me laugh. So I think this is kind of a bit embarrassing to admit, but when I had my old job, I'd have ideas like all the time when I was, especially if I was driving home, or I'd remember stuff that I needed to do, and so I would phone myself and leave a voicemail. So because you could do that all hands free in the car, so I could just phone myself and then hear my own voicemail message and then go, "Hi Laura, it's Laura. Remember that you need to call so and so tomorrow." And then in the morning I would get into work, and the first thing I do is listen to my voicemails that were myself telling me what I needed to do for the day. Then once I was self-employed and I had to I wasn't able to just dish out those to-do lists to other people, which was very annoying, and I had to do it all myself. I don't know if you've seen some of my posts I have a bit of a notebook obsession, so I have like stacks and stacks of these really pretty notebooks, and there'd be a different notebook for the different areas of my life or different projects. So I felt that was quite organized, and that's where all my ideas went. And then I think it was last year, Jonathan, who's editing the podcast, editing the show, just like, I think I nearly broke him because he was like, we've got this platform called Notion and we could put everything on it. And I was like, you have no idea how bad I am. You've massively underestimated the seriousness of the situation. And so now everything is on Notion. So if I have an idea, it just goes, I have the master list. So that's everything goes into this list and it gets tagged with whatever project it's attached to. And each of my days per week is attached to a different area of the business. So if it's Tuesday and that's like development day, I'll go in and work on those things.
Have you got an area for like your personal life? So if you're in the middle of writing an email and you come up with a great recipe for chicken korma, where does that go? In Notion?
I tend not to bother with recipes too much because my cooking is not amazing.
Okay.
But I have got there's a whole section for the boys, which is great because I home ed them. So everything is my responsibility. It's like remembering like certificates or courses or anything they've done. So that's all recorded in one section. And we have I'll have a section for Christmas. Like it's got everybody's Christmas lists on or what they've asked for, and I can tick it off if I've done it. So literally everything is inside this Notion database now. And then that's what I'm looking at, like on my phone for the interview notes. I think that's not going to show up, but so I set up a task that is, these are the things I'll ask in Laura's interview.
Yeah.
And then I can just go through it and tick them off as I've asked them.
Oh,
and then I can just copy that for the next interview, and it's ready for the next person.
Amazing. So you should probably put a link to Notion at this point.
I will put a link to Notion, put a link to Jonathan, I wouldn't recommend people try and attempt it themselves, because that was a bit of a mess when I tried to do that. You need like an expert to help you. But it has made a huge difference, because I was, even from, if you think about, you have an idea and I think, I need to put it in that notebook, the time that's wasted faffing about trying to find the right notebook. And then
finding a pen that works. Yeah.
It was just stacks of ideas that weren't actioned in any way. Whereas now it gets turned into an action straight. It's got to be an action in a plan somewhere. Otherwise I can't record it. So it's not just like an idea. It's, even if it's like, I want to research this more, I have to put a date in when that's going to happen. So it's like there's less ideas, there's less kind of ideas that go nowhere, and much more like action task, like actually getting stuff done. So far I'm managing to stay away from the notebooks and stick to the tool. And
so what the hell is everyone going to buy you this Christmas? Because I'm imagining that's like a safe, what do we get, Laura? I'll just go to paper chase.
Just alcohol every time. That's all my family get for me.
People. Booze.
They just arrive with like a litre bottle of gin and go, there you go. I've got 3 siblings, I've got 3 brothers. So if we all bought for each other and our partners, this makes us sound really tight, but also just gets a bit boring, doesn't it? So for a few years, we've had a £20 challenge every year. So you have to create a box of snacks, or this year our challenge is going to be buy a board game. Then we wrap them up, and then they're not addressed to anyone. My mum swaps them all around, and then she decides who gets what box. So you could end up with anything as long as you don't get your own. So that's easy for me to, I'll get a board game and alcohol this Christmas. No notebooks. I'm sorted.
Happy days.
Probably ended up like devolved into talking about what I'm going to get for Christmas. But the board games overcome the really awkward bit where nobody can talk to me because they don't know what it is I do for a living or on a day-to-day basis.
Let's roll the dice and move on.
Let's get on, play. Yeah. And then we just constantly rip each other for whoever is the last person to have lost. And we bring ourselves back down to the level of being about 6 or 7 years old. We can all have a really lovely time and forget about what we do for a living.
Yeah. Judge each other's lives. Just let's play the game.
Okay. Thank you very much for being on the show. Tell everyone where we can find you, and you're gonna show me how to do a really cool thing so that they can get to your YouTube channel.
Yes. Okay. So there's going to be a YouTube card right now. I want to say in this corner. I think this is the right way, or if not, it'll be this corner. So you can come and check out my show on TV and see all of the stuff I talk about. And then if you want to just have a chat with me, or you want to kind of keep up to date with what's going on with my new plans that I've just divulged on the episode today, come and hang out with me on Instagram. So the hanger to that will be in the show notes, and maybe Jonathan will put a graphic to that up in one of the corners as well.
Wow.
But I'll give you the details for that. No pressure, Jonathan.
And now you've said that you're going to do this future project for this program. If we can get enough people to mention in the comments that it sounds like a great idea, then you really have to do it. This is like maximum accountability now.
Well, it's happening. I think the accountability needs to be on which quarter of next year it actually is launched.
Okay.
So give us a Q2, 3 or 4 in the comments.
So Q1's totally off the table.
Absolutely no way in hell is that happening.
Definitely got to be Q2 then. Like, I'd like the idea of starting the new financial year with something exciting, like another income stream that we could add to our businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a good show. Okay, so let us know in the comments if you're interested.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Laura, and thanks for watching. And I have not considered how to wrap this up at all. So see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Mwah.